Good morning and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, that thing's going back on jack stands. But it is for a good cause because this old girl has 627,773 kilometers on her, and she is still on her original leaf springs. They have sagged, and of course the big old V8 up front, which actually doesn't weigh that much more than a 4Y on account of being completely aluminium, doesn't exactly help. It rides terribly, and I know the suspension has collapsed because it has 20mm extended shackles up front and 40mm extended shackles up front, and it's at stock ride height. And today we are fixing that with these Old Man Emu leaf springs. I bought them secondhand, just so you know. They were a good deal. With that, she's getting new U-bolts because you need to change those every time you change your springs. These are one-time use because they are stretch bolts. Some greasable shackle pins, also second-hand. Some brand new suspension bushings, from Toyota mind you. And some 30mm wheel spacers, also technically second-hand. For those of you who have been here for a while will know that those spacers are from Susie. Susie will not be needing them at the moment. Let's not talk about that. By the way, don't buy stuff from the coast. It took me like 3 days to restore the springs and the pins. It was so much sanding. With all the yapping out the way, let's get started. First step, if you're touching the rear suspension on these cars, you wanna drop your spare wheel. Another quick tip to help the car stay put, lock your hubs and put her in 4 low. Instead of the usual whereby I undo everything, drop the axle, get the springs in, and then battle with everything for much longer than I want to, I'm going to try a different method. I'm just going to do one blade at a time. Take the wheel off. As you can see, that wheel is on bricks, so it is supporting itself, kind of, sort of. Take this wheel off, get all this loose, blade out, blade in, wheel on, repeat for that side, and do the same up front. Because you can swap out the leaves without disconnecting anything else.
Quick PSA while I battle with my lug nuts. When using a breaker bar, you are stronger than you think you are. When tightening lug nuts or lug bolts, rather use a torque wrench set to factory specifications, and Bob's your uncle, you will not over tighten them like I so often do.
Turns out, when you keep your bushings greased, they come out a lot easier. You're joking. You're joking. Oh, fuck. No. No. Hi there, it's been a month. Either way, I can finally get that thing on its wheels again. Yay! What's happened since when last you saw me? We're in the process of moving house, so it's going to be a bit... I finished building that thing. That looks handsome. Basically what happened is the bushings on these HILUXes are a 30mm outer diameter bushing. Now that hole right there has a 35mm outer diameter and a gap there. That will come in later. So obviously my bushings that I got did not fit. Would not fit, will never have fit. So first, I looked into getting other bushings because I couldn't figure out that there could be anything wrong with my leaf springs. Those would have had a 35mm OD, closest I could get was for a 75 series Land Cruiser, and those still would not have been all the way correct. Then, I finally figured out by means of a photo on the internet, on the ARB USA website, because nobody anywhere has any technical specifications or anything on the OME leaf springs, that they use an insert right there instead of just installing the bushing into the leaf like most people do. So I tried making my own. Alas, these did not work. They are not snug enough. They're just No. And at long last, I finally found someone who could help me and bit the bullet and had to get custom bushings fitted and turned at a general engineering shop. I just need to bang or press these in because they do utilize a slight interference fit, and then Bob's your uncle, I can get the stuff installed. Also, to add some insult to injury, the U-bolt bushing kit that I bought was incorrect, because the U-bolts on the front of these, on the driver's side, passenger side if you're in the cheeseburger world, are longer than all the rest, and I was not supplied with those, so I had to hunt those down and buy them at more than the rest of the kit cost me. Also, look, almost looks like an interior again. But enough yapping, let me get to work. That looks so much fresher. It's not even funny. Still, any guesses on what I've done extra? Answer down in the comments below. Now, you already saw me take this side apart, so you don't have to see me take apart the other side. But you didn't see me put that side back together again, so I'll show you me putting this side back together again. So let me buzz that apart real quick, and then I'll get into the nitty gritty of how to install all of that correctly. Okay, it is ready to go in. Everything is in, bushings are in and greased. Definitely be sure to grease those, especially when you're using the collars. You do not want your bushings to seize in place into the collars, because you'll have a bad time. Ask me how I know. Benefit of doing one blade on an axle at a time instead of yanking it all down and having a flaccid axle flipping around is you spend a lot less time wrestling it. Basically, I'm going to take this, rest it on there, attach it there, attach it to the rear shackle, which I have to battle a bit because the exhaust sort of interferes with it, and I still need to address that issue. But addressing that would mean modifying this and having both of these tailpipes up to those flanges completely remade, which isn't a whole lot. I just need to get around to it. When I bought my springs, they came with a set of greasable shackle pins, which is a win because my original shackle pins are a bit tired. So throw a lick of paint on them, fresh hardware, fresh grease nipples, Bob's your uncle, they are on. You want to take care to never over tighten these, just sort of snug them up because you do not want to strip out these threads. It also has a neck over there to make sure it is securely and properly aligned. You just got to trust the force with getting those things in. If you're having trouble with them, having something like this, a pry bar, having a rubber mallet, which is, yes, there it is, as well as using that back bolt before you've put those in, just to sort of creep it ever so slightly. Just be careful, you don't want to wreck your stuff because those suck to do. And if you've ever done like an install on an ARB bull bar, or changed the front leaves, or did the bushings on the front, this is the worst part of it. And then last but not least, these are bushings right here, so you don't want to torque them up before you've set the car down on the ground. Just snug them a little bit, and then once the car's on the ground and settled at ride height, only then do you torque them, because you want your bushings to effectively bind at ride height. You don't want them to bind up after you've torqued everything up, because everything sort of pulls together. You don't want them to be at the neutral position when your car has no load on it. That will cause a slightly rougher ride, a bit more NVH in the cabin, and it will prematurely wear out your bushings. Why are you being difficult? Hey. Anyways, yeah, you can see I've bashed that in with a hammer just now to try and get more clearance. Still not enough. I'm going to have to sort of bully the exhaust. Oh, that literally just snapped. My exhaust hanger snapped right now. I know it's getting dark. Bear with me. I'm almost done with this, and then I'll continue the rest in daylight. That goes there, rest there. Make sure that's not too long. Plop that, and then U-bolt, U-bolt. I like to slap on my U-bolts before inserting the locating pin onto the hole in the axle. It just helps you find that locating pin so much easier by working sort of as a pseudo guide. There we go. "30mm wheel spacers," and before you light your pitchforks and sharpen your torches, hear me out. If you're gonna though, please do feel free to mouth off at me in the comment section below. Blue's fitment has always been a bit weaker than I've wanted it to be, and even with the addition of the spacer, because Blue's wheel specs are super weak, they're pretty much the same as OEM, I'll still be running a lower offset wheel package than what's on Dexter. So, also on the SFAs I've noticed the extra bit of offset up the front really helps a whole lot with handling. So, these are a win. The mantra is, if it's important and it spins, Loctite. So just use a little dab, not much, just very minimal, just enough to glue them in place, of Loctite on each wheel stud. A 110 Newton meters is the number you're looking for here. There we go. Big thing to remember when you're working with aluminium spacers such as these: never use a dak when doing up your lug nuts. Never ever use a torque gun. You can sort of snug them up, make it quick, but you want to stick with hand tools and definitely don't want to tighten it at all with an impact, because these are a press fit in the aluminium. An impact, you run the risk of breaking that press fit, and then you won't get them on or off properly. Ask me how I know. It is tomorrow, and that means, well, I gotta crack on, shouldn't I? I'm happy with the current ride height. This sits at the moment at a 40mm lift over what it used to be. It should settle down to a 30mm lift. These springs are a bit stiffer than what I took out of it. 30mm spacers are in. Fun fact, the rear track on these SFAs from factory is about 25mm more narrow on each side than the front track. HILUXs and Land Cruiser fields. Technically the HILUX did it first though. Very important thing to remember with the U-bolts on these cars. They need to be torqued. I'm going to torque them to 110 Newton meters each. Rule of thumb, no more than 120 Newton meters, no less than 100 Newton meters. Why? Well, they're stretch bolts. So that does mean one-time use. You don't really want to reuse them too many times. They fatigue and then they snap. And then you have a bad time. Or you won't even be able to get them up to the torque yield you need to achieve. If they're not torqued enough, well, you can round out your spring saddles, especially on the front. And it causes serious steering issues when accelerating, braking, or turning. Because what happens is the axle sort of rocks underneath the leaf spring, and that just ruins all of it. And eventually it will round out that saddle, and you will have to get plates made and get all of that repaired. Sorted. Now for the front, I can do everything without disconnecting anything. Remove that, disconnect the shackle, and the U-bolts, and this comes out, just be sure to have something underneath your axle to support its weight. I say again, do one side at a time, it'll make your life way easier. Also, for those of you concerned, the chassis is on trestles, so I'm not doing any sketchy stuff right now. Usually the thing that does fight you are the shackles, especially that top part, which I don't look forward to because I need to replace the bushing. Yeah, I'm running out of daylight, and I assume if you've watched this channel for a while now, you already know how leaf springs work, so I'm going to set the camera down, and when I pick it back up, that will be out of the way. It's not been going smoothly. Everything is fighting me. I had to take the exhaust out. Hi, it is tomorrow. Again, last night went rough. The sides mostly put together again, just need to button it up. As I've mentioned, exhaust is disconnected. I am down to the headers. I even had to remove my tailpipes just to get everything as far back as possible. Front shackles were installed the wrong way around initially, but that is solved. And now, in the sunlight and the daylight, when I've already figured out the other side, I can show you how to do this side. Kinda, there's not much to it. I put this whole thing on trestles last night just for peace of mind. But now I need to relax everything again so I can actually work on it. And now is a good time for me to show you just how much droop I may or may not have gained, I never checked, just by changing the spring. It's kind of funny because I want to limit droop on this thing in the front for reasons that I'll explain at some other time. So I'm going to put shorter shocks in it. So they're going to ride better, it's going to stand a bit taller, so I'm winning either way. And there you go. That's not bad. So that is a gain of about 60 millimeters of droop just from changing the springs. First step, be sure to have a jack underneath the differential at all times and have it ready to support the weight of your axle, because you're going to use this to maneuver your axle back onto your leaf springs. Fucking up. I'm going to enjoy how easily this came out, because they're not going to go back in so easily. Well, the new one's not going to go back in so easily. For doing the top mounts for your shackles, you will require two things. First of which being violence, second of which being lube, and an optional extra, gloves, because when it comes to the lube, you're gonna need a lot. Typically people tend to use whatever grease they have on hand to do bushings, usually just some general multi-purpose grease. But the issue with using a petroleum-based grease on rubber or polyurethane bushings is that, well, your bushings are petroleum based, so what it does is it absorbs into the bushing and it makes it swell slightly. So what I'm using here is Worth red rubber grease, which is what you're actually supposed to use. You also use red rubber grease to grease up O-rings, to rebuild calipers, pistons, etc, etc. It just works well with rubber. Also, it's super duper tacky and like 3 times as messy to work with as petroleum-based grease. So before you whack your shackle in, just install the first bushing onto the shackle. Don't put the second bushing in its spot yet. You're gonna put this on the shackle, put the shackle in the car, and then you're gonna wrestle this in place. And I do mean wrestle. Word of advice, if you're gonna do bushings, you can use rubber, you really can, but polyurethane bushings are so much easier to work with, it's not even funny. By the way, these are Toyota OEM. Do I recommend them? Really I do not. They are quite expensive, probably the most expensive option for a bushing you can get in this country, and like I said, they're hard to work with. They are in theory the most comfortable though, because they are softer than any polyurethane bushing you are likely to find. so it will take some NVH out of your cabin. There we go. Right. That is D. Right. Look, I drew flames on my springs. They're a bit shit, but flames. Alright, the springs are in. That means next up are the spaces. The front one, well, the front spaces are a bit more annoying because I've got an open diff up front. So what I need to do, well, what I needed to do, have done, is you put it in four-wheel drive, preferably low range. It gives you a bit more leverage. Put it in gear, and then put one front wheel on the ground. And then you can go ahead. At long last, she is back on all four. Now, I can get back on the floor and torque everything down on the front. And put the exhaust back. But I won't bore you by having you watch me do that. I mentioned earlier in the video that I had to disconnect the exhaust from this thing to do the front. So, I assume some of you at least wonder what this thing sounds like with open headers, and for those of you that stuck around until now and watched the video all the way thus far, thank you very much. Here's a little treat. It is dark again, but Blue is buttoned up now. I couldn't get the tailpipe back on. All the exhaust gaskets are gone or broken, so all of the exhaust leaks are there. All of the exhaust hangers are broken, so I've got wire holding the exhaust in, but Blue is on all four wheels. Everything is torqued. Next step, exhaust shop, but I'll show you what Blue looks like. Blue is finally put back together again and completely buttoned up. Well, for the most part at least. All of the flanges on the exhaust leaks. All those seals are gone or blown or broken, and I didn't put those back because they need to be rebuilt, remade, replaced, whatever. Anyways, they don't fit. So that's a problem for another week. Anyways, look at it. It looks so much better. I actually think the spacers made a bigger difference to the overall look than the lift did. As I've mentioned before, these are pretty much OEM offset rims. With the 13mm spacer, the rear fitment is literally friggin' perfect. Just a little bit of poke and all the thread is contained inside the guards. The front being a bit wider than the rear does poke a bit more, but that extra 30mm of offset on each side makes a huge positive difference to your steering feel and steering and cornering stability. I've driven a few Hiluxes. All of the ones with narrow wheels like Blue steered like poo, and all of the ones with big wide wheels like on Dexter just feel so much better. All in all, I lifted Blue by around about 1.5 inches front and back. Front would have been 2 inches, but I've got the big dumb B8 and the big dumb ARB bull bar up front, weighing it down a bit. And in the rear, I removed the bottommost overload blade. This one, to be exact, because well, I'm neither a canavanist nor an overlanding guy, so I don't need them. And that is 1.5 inches after the suspension has settled. After I torqued everything up, I aggressively drove Blue around the block, went and found a few bumps, may or may not have caught air, kinda. So I did cycle the suspension, and that is where Blue is gonna sit. It's a bit more stiff, which is perfect because I needed a bit more stiffness up front to handle the weight and to improve stability when going 4x4ing. And the rear, a little bit of stiffness is good because I've got the big dumb V8 and the limited slip differential, so that helps keep everything buttoned up, neat and tidy. With that being said, it is so much more comfortable and so much less harsh, mostly due to the friction pads and friction discs on these springs. With all of that being said, I cannot wait to properly test the suspension. I hope you enjoyed the video. I certainly had my moments making it. Leave a like, leave a comment, share the video with your friends, ask them to do the same, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.